Welcome to the 2020 season of the Inland Off-Road Championship. Ahead of us lie 8 grueling races covering over 2,500 kilometers of rugged off-road terrain. All this action is proudly brought to you by series sponsors Ural Trucks, Fila Africa, and Calyx Sound Hire. So with the new season comes new championship hopes and expectations as the eager crews start to set up their pits in the early morning build-up. A challenging loop of 84 kilometers lay ahead of the competitors to be tackled once as the qualifying prologue and twice more in the afternoon as part of the main race. With a combination of sand and twisty bits thrown into the mix and less emphasis on top speed, the loop could prove a great leveler, but once again, only time would tell. Driver's briefing as usual, important race information was dispatched at the all-important competitors briefing session before everyone headed out to the line for the qualifying prologue race. With the opening part of the season to go, everyone was trying to set out their stall early for 2020. Line-up time now as the competitors headed out to the start of the prologue. The 2020 season was about to get underway for the TIORC competitors. The prologue would set everything up to start out the season. Join us after the break to see who walked away with the first cheese.
Dream cars, cars of strong emotions. Built with unparalleled passion, a unique sense of style. They are more than just cars. They are a statement of the automotive passion of their drivers.
Welcome back to our coverage of the Excelsior 250, round 1 of the TIORC series for 2020. First up in the prologue, it was going to be Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner. They had the dubious pleasure of opening up the route. They would have no wheel tracks from other competitors. They would be setting the tone of the morning session, and they would be finding the going tough as they were out in the loose terrain to open up the lap. Everyone else was going to be finding the advantage as they had at least one set of tyre tracks to follow. There was an overshoot on their run, and that would have cost them valuable time as they had to go and figure out how to get themselves back onto the route. Henry was quick enough on the notes to figure out the mistake and got them back up to full speed quick. The trick would be, though, the following competitors may make the same mistake. The G1, the brothers of Werner and Leon Mostert, were up next and eager to set off their season in fine style. Remember, they were the 2019 national inaugural champions in the side-by-sides. The terrain certainly suited the SXS cars, but a few small mistakes cost them time on their prologue run, and they would have to fight back from the back of the pack. Something that the Mostert brothers relish. For the G11, it was a slightly different look and feel inside of the cab. Marcus Labuschagne on the wheel kicked off his season with a new navigator, that in the form of Gerjo Niemand, a name that we'll be able to recognize as we go through and forward into the rest of the tour. Marcus didn't lack outright speed, but mechanical issues have plagued him last season, and he's hoping to change his fortunes in 2020. Quick word for the marshals to make sure they stay on track. No mistakes in the early running, but they would have to improve as the day got longer. T16 had illustrious company behind the wheel, that of Jannie Visser, usually competing in Class S, who had made the switch to Class T in the Fila Africa Ford Ranger. Alongside him was his new navigator, Donnie Moret from Fila Africa. Still coming to grips with the Ranger, Jannie and Donnie were hoping for a good showing to kickstart their 2020 season in style. They had dipped a toe into the racing format together, and in this vehicle in the 2019 season, this time around, they were going into attack mode. For the crew of the G87 that came out of nowhere to start pulling big performances in 2019, Theo Erasmus and Edward Odendahl, now in their second season together, were back and hoping to make serious onslaughts on the G-Class and overall production vehicle championship. They were definitely a massive threat that everyone had spoken about in the off-season. For Kobus Fourie and Philippe Leroux, they were hoping for an end to their bad luck run that took them all the way through last season. The pairing are certainly fast enough to mix it up with the cars at the sharp end of the field, and they would just be simply waiting to see how 2020 would be unfolding for themselves in the Class P championship chase. For the Green Machine, Lawrence Boyson wasn't a regular competitor through the 19 season, but when it did come out to play, the mighty big green Bat Venom with the V8 Chevy was always at the front end of the field. Navigator for this outing was local Vryburg resident, Kosi Geldenes. The D-Class was always going to be fun to watch in 2020 as it's become one of the most competitive categories. Lawrence Van Veek and Moni Roux are the defending Class T champions. Following on from their first season together, the pairing were looking to make it back-to-back championships, 2019 and 2020 for Class D, and also hoping for a good showing in the overall production vehicle categories. Always great to see what the Land Cruisers can do, and they seem to have got faster through the years. The D2 of Tians Vitoy and James O'Mahony in the Propeller Center Toyota Land Cruiser were up to the task. Tians finished second in the Class D Championship last season and was hoping to get one better this time around. Certainly, they were looking to climb all the way to the tippy top against some extremely tough competition in the production vehicle Class Ds. Stumfer, an experienced campaigner at regional and national level a few years back, is back in the fray with Frans Koch joining him in the navigation seat. Heine doesn't lack speed, and Frans is becoming a very competent navigator and a Vryburg local to boot. He knows the terrain and conditions very well, so all eyes were on them for an old and young pairing that may deliver the goods. Join us after the break when we continue our prologue racing action from the Excelsior 250.
For more than 40 years, the Nürburgring has been running its own racing series, the Nürburgring Endurance Championship, organized by the VLN. 9 races per season, 4 to 6 hours of race distance, up to 180 racing cars, almost 1,000 racers from more than 30 nations. No racing series in the world comes close to comparable numbers.
This week on The Bike Show, 3 ways of doing sport touring, I get wet in the name of science, and a giant run of togetherness. That's this week on The Bike Show.
Welcome back once again for the opening round of the TIORC Championship in 2020. The Excelsior 250 was setting us up nicely to see how the rest of the season was going to unfold. Most of the cars are going to be going out to try and get themselves in the best position possible for the prologue. Glenn Turon and Craig Galvin were looking forward to competing in a full season together after only joining halfway through the 2019 tour. A 4th place in the championship after just that as well was certainly just rewards for the pairing and the pace that they showed, showing also that they were definitely a massive threat for the championship come 2020. One of the local business owners running in the D4 was that of Hein Kruger, who was tackling a new season with a new navigator in the form of Albertus Venter. Halfway through last season, Hein was leading the Class D championship, but a bad second half of the season saw him plummeting down to eventually round out the number 4 spot. As determined as ever, he was going to give it his all in the very competitive class to try and remain a top 3 runner in the Ds. Viviers and the Ford were back for more, also with a new navigator. That seems to be the theme of the opening round of the season. This time it was rookie lady, Alida Fischer, who had the honor to step into what we call the hot seat. It was a case of in at the deep end as well for Alida, but she was looking forward to the challenge. The twin-turbo diesel-powered Ford Ranger had its fair share of technical issues in last season and the previous season before that, but hopefully the gremlins are now all sorted out and the beast can belch that black smoke and get the results that it deserves. For Aldi Erasmus in the only Polaris entered up against a host of Can-Ams in the G-Class. He was joined this season by Andre Geldenaes, stepping out for the first time out of a tin top, who is a regular competitor driver and former champion in the Class E's. It was a much more snug fit inside the cab of the Polaris, and with very little top and certainly no windscreen as protection, it was going to be a slightly different feeling for the big man. The G16 of Stefan Elof and Jarpi Brunette showed a great turn of speed at the last event of 2019. And we were hoping to see more of them. That certainly happened as they turned up for the opening round of 2020, but they were up against the odds in their older spec Can-Am Maverick, a smaller engine than the newer versions and certainly less hop-up. However, they were giving it their all and enjoying the route tremendously. G15 were an unknown quantity. Newcomers, Hanno Bierman and Peter de Beer, lined up in the side-by-sides trying to take on the might of the G-Class. They certainly looked fast and seemed to revel in the conditions. And with the markings on the side, it showed that this was one of the former factory side-by-sides. So the car was fast. Could they hang on to it? We then moved on to the E2 of Dolph de Toy in the other propeller center entry, tackling the 2020 season with new navigator Raul van der Westhuizen. Dolph ended up second in the Class E championship, and with last year's defending champion Dirk Putter missing out of the race, Dolph was hoping to start the season with maximum points in the bag. Johan Besson and Rudy Van Heerden in the Bash Auto Toyota Hilux switched from a Class B Sandmaster to Class E during the 2019 season. Piloting an older Hilux doesn't seem to hamper them, and they didn't show any loss of speed. Johan is somewhat of a hard charger. In the E5, Johan Visser and Jerry Vasson showed a great turn of speed at the last event in 2019. Could they carry this form forward into the 2020 season? They couldn't afford to take it easy, as they were also hoping to open their season with a win. D11 had some fun names on the wheel and on the notes. Stompy Maynard showed his speed at the final event of 2019. Could he be the dark horse for the Class D and overall championship in the second of the big Land Cruisers? Tackling the 2020 season with seasoned national championship winning navigator Adrian Roots alongside him, they were going to definitely be a force to be reckoned with. In the E8, it was brothers Ignis and Gerard Duplessis who were back in action in the Druip Civils and Plant Hire Isuzu. After missing most of last season, they were back to take the fight to the Hiluxes and the Nissans of the Class E terrain. In the E14, it was great to see Rodney Cook and Greg Parkin back, as they didn't take part in the 2019 season at all, instead focusing on rebuilding the Nissan for a full onslaught. They were hoping 2020 would be their season. Part of the HUD racing outfit, with David Huddy racing in the National Class S, this professional outfit looked the part, and the crew and their team were looking forward to favourable results. Defending Class B champions, our all-ladies team of Carleen Croshaw and mother Morena van Skalkwyk now had a target on their backs, but that didn't faze them one bit. They were also looking to defend their class title and were certainly going to give it their best. They were, on 2019, one of the most consistent crews of the season. In the E-Class, local youngsters Manu Mulman and Pieter Badenhorst joined the 2019 championship towards the end of the season. Campaigning an older Toyota Hilux, what they lacked in vehicle spec, they made up with enthusiasm and gusto. Always nice to see young teams joining the series, and we were holding thumbs they could make it to the finish of the first event of 2020 against more mature and experienced teams and younger vehicles. For the B2, it was a bit of an in-fight. Sifu van Skalkwyk and Arthur Croshaw were beaten to the Class B championship last year by both of their wives. Could the guys turn the tables around this year and the battle of the sexes swing the way of the boys? As such, there were no family orders, and it was all going to be an interesting fight between the families to see who walked away with the B number one. At the Excelsior 250, the opening round of the TIORCs, Wayne Smith and Victor Fincham paired up for the first time in 2020 in their Vryburg Speedy Tyre and Fitment Toyota Hilux, hoping to start their season well in the highly competitive Class E's. Victor spent last season navigating for Andre Gildenhuys, and this experience should bode well for the squad. The illustrious pairing in the E-Class and men looking to nail down the number 1 plate in 2020. Swace Moret and Jacques Leroux were another Class E crew looking to kick off their season with a good showing. Although the championship is not won at the first race, it's always nicer to start with a good points haul in the bag than to have to chase through the rest of the tour. Swace and Jacques were looking to be top of the pile come the end of the Excelsior. A different number board this time around for 2020. The father and son pairing of Aki and Jandre Kruger switched to Class F for the 2020 season. They've been together for a few years now and consistently are top performers. Could 2020 and the change of class be the big one for them? They were definitely looking to give it their all. For the B class, we were looking to see who was going to be up there to spoil the infighting. The B12 of Ben-Eric and Piers Botmer were hoping to be that spoiler. They have been plagued by mechanical issues in the past and were hoping that these were things of the past and stayed there. Having not raced this race before, they were a bundle of nerves heading into the prologue, but as the kilometers ticked away, they seemed to loosen up, relax, and with it came the speed. What a story this was for the B63. Quinton Lessing and Noel Acton came all the way up from the Eastern Cape to compete in their Class B, newly acquired Sandmaster. They too were nervous before the start, not knowing exactly what to expect from the race and the terrain, and also still getting to grips with the car itself. The smallest of small overshoots that had caught out some bigger names as well cost them a few seconds, but they were quickly able to recover and get back on track. The red Nissan, as it's known, an incredible piece of machinery. The F4 class, Ahmed Jada and Keith Smith in one of the old Nissan hardbodies were out in Class F and looking forward to a great season. Ahmed had his fair share of bad luck and a ton of mechanicals in the past 2 seasons. The goal of this event was simply to see the flag. At the end of the prologue, there were some interesting results. Top of the pile went to a Class G, and that of Hanno Bierman and Peter de Beer, who put one over on Heini Stumfer and Franz Koch, with Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner surprisingly down in third place. They would have to do the big chase back. Topping the second page was Jannie Visser and Donnie Moret, who were still coming to terms with their Class T in the older version of the machine, but they did beat out Theo Erasmus and Edward Odendahl. A fantastic mix in the top 14 between production vehicles, Sandmasters, and side-by-sides. Join us after the break as we now go racing the Excelsior 250.
We got our man Dustin. He's the ultimate sports fan.
Go, 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 go! Yes! Touchdown! His tailgate game's pretty weak. Miserable. So we're gonna build him the ultimate tailgating vehicle. Get some! Yes!
I love tailgating because just being around your friends and family and everybody getting along, rooting for the same team. We're the opposite team, and everybody can have their own little feud and argue and do whatever they need to. That's good?
Yeah. Basically, we're going to take him from perennial cellar dweller to playoff contention in one build. This build, no problem. Mustard, please.
This time on Graveyard Cars, Mark teaches Alyssa to document and prep 3 cars for disassembly. The team installs the 400 Magnum and the 1972 Dodge Charger, and Alyssa commits a crime that Mark may never forgive. On this episode of Graveyard Cars.
Welcome back as we continue our coverage from the Excelsior 250, the opening round of the TIORC Championship for 2020, with the not-so-simple formality of the first 84-kilometer loop done and dusted that counted as a prologue, which would therefore decide the starting order going forward into the 2 laps main race. Let's first take a look at the guys that unfortunately didn't make it all of the way. For the B63 of Quinton Lessing and Noel Acton, even though they made the big trip from the Western Cape, a broken drive shaft put them onto the sidelines and they would not see the flag at the Excelsior. Behind Kruger and Albertus Fenter this time around, mechanicals dogging them in the early part of the season, they would have to go back to the short drawing board and figure things out before round number 2. Benerick and Pierce Botmer, who had high hopes of upsetting the apple cart in the Class B Championship. This time around, the B12 ran out of gearbox. That was it. No drive, no results. For Ignis and Gerard Duplessis, the E8, unfortunately this time around, also suffering mechanical issues. It's often a case of things going wrong at the early events. Shakedowns, maybe 1 or 2 bolts not tightened in the off-season, but as the season goes on, we see more consistency out of all of the crews. The Isuzu would not make the lap this time around. For Rodney Cook and Greg Parkin, who had literally taken 12 months to do the big rebuild on the E14, this time around it was an absolute horror show. A blown engine that would see them not only step out of the event, but have to go shopping and spend some quality cash early in the season. Stain Viviers and Alida Fouchier, a new pairing, an old vehicle, and unfortunately the age is starting to show. It was electrical problems that stepped them off out of the event. For the G11, they went into limp mode just 10 kilometers into the race after looking so promising in the prologue. That dropped them way down the order. For the T16 of Jannie Visser and Donnie Moret, who were looking for a consistent run in one of the older Fords, and after running initial strong pace, a broken bolt on the rear suspension put them out of the running. After not lifting through the early part of the run, Curbis Ferry and Philippe Leroux looked like they were on for an absolutely dominating run. Mechanicals, though, crept up on them, and perhaps it was just asking a little bit too much in the early stages for the P44. They were out. Now for the guys that did make the finish line. The E16 and the pairing of Wayne Smith and Victor Fincham were having a day they would rather forget. They had to overcome many issues to eventually make it to the finish, 18th production and 6th in Class E. Another crew with a day to forget was that of Werner and Leon Mostert, looking to nail down another number 1 plate in the Class Gs. They didn't have things all their own way and eventually finished 17th in production and 5th in class. That would have been expected at least a top 3 overall and a win in category. For Johan Besson and Rudy van Heerden, after a few DNFs last season, they again had hassles. But this time they pressed on to bring the Hilux home in 5th place in Class E and 16th production vehicle. This is against all odds. This is off-road championship racing, and you have to bring it to the finish line no matter what. Hats off to Besson and van Heerden for toughing it out. For Suez Moret and Jacques Leroux, the race took its toll and they had too many mechanical problems, but they did push on. Finally, they missed out on a podium by just 1 place, 4th in Class E. They were definitely hoping to take the fight to the Can-Ams in the lone Polaris. LD Erasmus and Andre Geldenes tried as they might, but they didn't have a clean run and also narrowly missed out on a class podium finish. 6th place in the Class G at the end of play was still a good run for the Polaris. Third spot in Class G belonged to the G87 crew, and with that, 13th place overall productions went to Theo Erasmus and Eddie Odendahl. crew of the E18, Munro Millman and Peter Badenhorst, were elated as they crossed the finish line in a well-deserved and respectable podium class position. They ended up taking third in Class E. Hats off to the kids. For Dolf de Toy and Raul van der Westhuizen, a new pairing coming into the event, the E2. Not quite a perfect day, but a second place in Class E was not to be sniffed at, especially when you consider that they finished a second behind brother Tians in the Class D Propeller Center Land Cruiser. After posting identical prologue times as their sister car in the E2, Tians de Toy and James O'Mahony remarkably finished only 1 second ahead in the overall standings, taking 10th in the production category and a very respectable third in Class D. For the boys, Sifi van Skalkwyk and Arthur Croshaw, they chased the ladies as hard as they could, but in the end had to settle for second place. That in Class B and third in the special vehicle category. Which meant the ladies did exactly what they wanted to do, beat the husbands. Carleen Croshaw and Marina van Skalkwyk beat the guys and in the process took the win in Class B to start their championship defense in fine style. Not even a broken exhaust silencer towards the end of the race could slow them down, and with that came a well-deserved and incredible second place overall in the special vehicle category standings. So join us after the break to see who got to the checkers first at the Excelsior 250.
Next time.
Oh, it's going to be carjacked right now.
When we bring your car back, it's going to be a little bit different.
She's aspiring makeup artist.
You better not have done something stupid to her. What do you think?
What do you think?
I'm gobsmacked. I'm flabbergasted.
We're looking for the country's worst home wreckers.
You're in the country now. This is how we do stuff around here.
We wrecked our house.
And the kids wrecked this house.
You wrecked our house.
He wrecked his house.
I'm pretty handy.
No, you're not.
So our team of professionals is going to swing into action.
This is a gut. We're going to strip at the sticks and start again. Here we go.
And give them something absolutely electrifying.
We have light.
Wow, man. This is nuts.
Holy look at the fireplace!
It looks fabulous.
Yes!
This week on Garage Gold.
We're in Bethlehem checking out some one-of-a-kind rides at the Maluti Motor Show.
I'm in Santon looking at some dreamy supercar classics.
But looking at this now, I'm just like, I feel like I could be Tom Selleck. I just need to grow a mustache now.
So, no, you're too short.
And we see how this Porsche Carrera and Maserati Grand Sport do in our concourse competition. That's Garage Gold, only on Ignition TV, channel 189.
Welcome back to the Excelsior 250, our opening round of the TIORC Championship for 2020. Before the breaks, we've been talking about the prologue, the opening 84 kilometers, and then the afternoon session was 2 laps of the exact same route. So by this stage, all crews should know where they are heading. For Aki and Jandre Kruger, in a steady outing with no major issues reported, the father and son duo kept it all together inside the top 10 in production category and finished 9th overall and 2nd in Class F. Johan Vierser and Jerry Besson, having set the fastest time on the last day of the 2019 season in Class E, they carried their good form through to the start of 2020 with a good, strong win in Class E once again. If they can add reliability to their turn of speed, they will definitely be a crew to beat. But this season, remember, has only just begun. In what will go down as a drive of a lifetime, Amajada and Keith Smith didn't put a foot wrong, and all the hard work and preparation finally paid off. The Class F win was theirs, finally, and in fine style too, as they ended with a 7th overall in production category to take an early class lead in the 2020 championship. Great work for the crew, that more than definitely deserved it. For the pairing of Lawrence Van Veek and HB Roo, Try as they may, the competition proved too much, and they had to settle for second place in Class D and a 6th overall in production category. Still not a bad start to the defense of their title, but I'm sure they'll be back with a vengeance at round 1. Once you taste blood, you want more. For Glenn Turon and Craig Galvin, who showed such good form and pace at the end of 2019, it seems to be a matter of time until they take a class win. But a fine performance at round 1 saw them come home 2nd in Class G and a great 5th overall in the production vehicle category. The Calyx crew are getting faster every kilometer. For the D11 of Stompie Maynard and Adrian Roots, hard charging could well be an understatement here, but the win in Class D at round 1 went their way. And although it's still early days in the championship, they certainly now are one of the crews to keep an eye on. In the off-season, the talk was as soon as these guys pair up, there's going to be problems out there for the rest. For Heini Stamfer and Frans Koch being involved in a three-way tussle for the overall lead throughout the first loop of the main race, they picked up some issues on loop number 2 and fell out of competition for the overall honours, but still clinched a Class S win in style, and a handy 3rd overall in the process came their way. If they keep this pace up, the competition at the sharp end of the field has all of a sudden got very interesting. In the specials, Lawrence Boyson and Percy Geldenes put in a fine performance as the green bat growled its way through the day, and the crew took a Class A and overall special vehicle category victory. For Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner, you couldn't fault them on their effort. They gave it their all, including an epic dice over the last 10 kilometers or so. But the overall victory was not to be theirs come the end of the day. Second place overall was their reward for the day, and more importantly, first place in Class FIA prototypes. That meant history was made. An overall win for Hanno Bierman and Peter de Beer in the G15, putting in an incredible performance on terrain that suited the characteristics of the side-by-side. Newcomers Bierman and de Beer walked away with not only the Class G win, but also an overall in production category. This may well be one of many. The terrain suited them down to the ground, and the machine performed faultlessly. But for the first time in 2020, a side-by-side was on the tippy top. So what a story, and here is a confirmation of the breakdown of results through the categories. Special vehicle overall, Lawrence Boyson and the Green Machine alongside Kursi Geldenes topped the charts, but it was the two Class Bs that ran them the closest. In production vehicles, starting out with the prototypes, Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner topped the charts there. Class T was Jannie Visser and Donnie Murray, and Class S, Heini Stumpfer and Frans Koch gelling well to get their win. In the Class Ds, Stompie Maynard and Adrian Roots are going to be hard to beat. It was Lawrence Van Beek and HB LaRue that ran them the closest, and in the Class E, Johan Vierser and Jerry Besson ahead of Dolf de Toy and Raul van der Westhuizen. For the Class F, Ahmed Jada and Keith Smith celebrating hard after their win ahead of Aki and Jean-Andre Kruger, and Class G in the side-by-sides, overall winner Hanno Bierman and Peter de Beer, beating out Tehran and Galvin. In the production vehicle overalls, it was Bierman and de Beer, even though they're in the side-by-sides, it is a production vehicle, beating out on Roberts, Kerner and Stumpfer and Koch for the top three. An amazing opening round of the championship, the Excelsior 250, giving us our first winners of the tour. All this action was brought to you by Ural Trucks in association with Fila Africa and Calix Sound Hire.